Yes. So let's go ahead and put this next part up on the screen. So it is after this interview, Kanye tweeted a symbol that included a swastika, and his account was suspended by Elon Musk on Twitter. Now, the backstory here is that Elon had just brought him back and has, had this sort of blanket amnesty for people. And so Kanye had just been brought back on to the platform. And then he tweets this out. And there was also some sort of back and forth between them that was also released, their text messages, where Elon's basically like, okay, you went too far. And my understanding, I don't know if this is still the case, is that this was a temporary suspension because of the tweeting of the swastika. Now, obviously, everybody here finds the use of this hate symbol to be utterly abhorrent. It is not something that you should share. It is disgusting. It is something that it's just completely deplorable. It is a hate symbol.
In the way that he used it specifically.
Yes.
Like, he didn't use it as the Hindu symbol, okay, for the folks who are out there trying to be contrarian. He put it inside of a Jewish star. I think it was pretty damn clear what he was trying to get to.
However, Elon has portrayed himself as a free speech absolutist. So what does that actually mean? Well, we'll get to this in a minute, but as abhorrent and hateful as the sharing of a swastika is, it has actually been ruled by the Supreme Court as protected free speech. So we'll get to that in a minute. Musk was asked to justify Kanye's suspension. He says he did it because the swastika image was an incitement of violence and suggests it was a violation of U.S. law. And the commentary here is that swastikas are obviously problematic symbols, but I'm not aware that sharing them is a violation of any U.S. law. And in fact, that it is not. If we put up this next piece, I mean, this is the most famous ACLU case of all time, where you had lawyers at the ACLU, many of whom were Jewish, by the way, who defended the right of the American Nazi Party to march and display the swastika in Skokie, Illinois. This was a town that had many Jewish people in it, so this was obviously a disgusting and inflammatory display by the American Nazi Party, an abhorrent, disgusting group of people. But ultimately, the Supreme Court ruled on the side of the American Nazi Party and their right to march and to display the swastika, even though these are hate symbols, even though it is hate speech, and even though it is disgusting. Let me just read you some of the specifics here. They say the ACLU famously defended the American Nazi Party's ability to protest in Skokie, Illinois, including the display of swastikas. The Supreme Court has struck down laws that have restricted offensive speech, such as the wearing of swastikas in Village of Skokie versus National Socialist Party of America. But in a separate case, Virginia versus Black, the Supreme Court declined to rule that cross-burning was protected expressive speech under the First Amendment when such an activity was intended to intimidate, reasoning that sometimes it can constitute a true threat. So that just gives you a little bit more background of where the Supreme Court has drawn the line. So if you are a free speech absolutist, if you're saying I am going to run this platform consistent with the First Amendment and protection of free speech, this action against Kanye, even though what he tweeted is disgusting and deplorable, not something that anyone should defend, is not consistent with those principles.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's why it was important that we both set it up with talking about how abhorrent, ridiculous, and disgusting his views are. However, if Elon does say he's a free speech absolutist, this does violate a free speech absolutist policy. And it highlights exactly what we were talking about in the Twitter files, because when Elon was asked why this was an incitement to violence, he said, well, I felt incited to violence when I saw his tweet. It's like, well, now you're actually just saying that everything is up to you. Look, you're not going to see widespread crying about this. And that's why, it feels somewhat uncomfortable even to have to point this out. But it does show you that principles matter for a reason, as the ACLU showed us in the Skokie case in the first place, which is trying to strike down and set a broad-based standard that can never be used against any dissenting group in the future. Often happens in the edge cases in areas where everybody can almost universally agree that it shouldn't exist, and yet that does not mean that the government itself can use those policies to quash speech that it just certainly doesn't like, even when it is abhorrent, as the American Nazi Party. So it's a complicated situation, but I think it highlights again, even with Elon buying it, like, it's still up to him. He says because he felt incited to violence. Like, what does that even mean? That doesn't mean anything.
He said something similar about his decision to keep Alex Jones banned. He also based it on what was a tragic personal experience for Elon of losing his first child as a baby. And so he said, you know, anyone, I'm paraphrasing here, but basically like anyone who would, you know, have anything to say about children and cover this up, like that's just, I can't go there. So again, it was like his own personal view of what crossed the line. And that's why, listen, guys, you're not going to find your answers in any particular person or billionaire, even ones that claim to be free speech absolutists. I do think because he did, you know, it is not a comfortable thing to defend, you know, Kanye West posting a freaking swastika on Twitter, but Elon was taking some heat and criticism over this from some of the people who have been allies of his. And so I do think that might have been one of the reasons why he decides to ultimately put out these Twitter files. That was one of the things that Glenn Greenwald suggested, among others. But that could have been the motivation for the timing right now, because it gets you talking about, okay, well, what was revealed and what happened with the Hunter Biden stuff. That doesn't mean that, you know, Taibbi shouldn't have covered it or put it out into the information ecosystem. But I do think that might have been part of the motivation for why right now they release these files.
I think that's right. I just want to say again, like, it's not comfortable to sit here and talk about how this violates like First Amendment speech, but that doesn't mean that it's not important. And I don't think anyone should construe it as a defense of the swastika or the American Nazi Party or Kanye West, but simply to say that there's a much larger principle here that is involved, and that's exactly what I want it taken out of the hands of these people for an individual decision.
And it's when the principle is uncomfortable that it matters the most. That's when it actually matters. In clear-cut cases, then, you know, it's easy and, you know, the public will be 100% behind you. I have no doubt that if you poll the American public about, like, you know, should be Kanye West be banned over a swastika, probably we were very much on the minority side of that view. But again, that's when ultimately, like, having the bedrock principles and having them consistently adjudicated and having some sort of a democratic process involved matters the most. Hey guys, ready or not, 2024 is fully upon us now, and Sagar and I have been brainstorming ways that we can really up our game for this critical election.
Yeah, we rely on our premium subs to expand our coverage, to add staff, to upgrade the studio. We just want to give you the best independent coverage of this election, which is possible. So if you can help us out, become a premium subscriber today, breakingpoints.com, or the link is down here in the description video. It really means the world to us, and if you like what we're all about, this is the best possible way to keep us 100% independent, working only for you.